Hi everyone. Uh, Hello. First, I would like to check if the sound is correct. Can you hear me okay? Hi, can you hear me? Can we check if the sound is correct? Okay, thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, and we're going to start then. Uh, First of all, hello everyone, and welcome to this new Pandora FMS workshop, in in which we will talk about the auto-discovery of new devices with the discovery tool and the application of module templates in the same discovery task. We will also see the new SNMP and WMI wizards, which have been recently modified. And we will also see how to add new network components that we can then use in the templates and the wizards themselves. To start, the first thing we will do is register a device with SNMP enabled in Pandora. To register a device, the first thing we must do is to know its private enterprise number. For those who don't know what this is, we are going to explain it briefly. All SNMP devices have an identifying string, which we know as OID, which is unique for each brand and model of a device. Within those strings, we have a number that is in the 7th position, and that determines which manufacturer the device belongs to. If we want to identify this number in our device, we only need to execute the next call or execution. So we can go to our terminal, and we will make a SNMP walk to the device with the following OID. In my case, I try SNMP walk version 2C, the community, the IP of the device, and this is the OID, which one we can get the private enterprise number. This will return the following result, from which can get the private enterprise number, which is here. This number is the one that I'm marking on the screen, and that corresponds to the 7th position that we mentioned before. To see what's manufacturer the number that we see below, we can go to Diana, and there in the web we can find a large number of manufacturers that are registered. We can see here, for example, the number 9, which is the private enterprise number for Cisco devices, for Cisco systems. If we want to find that one, we can make a search. We can find. Okay, we can see here 171 is the private enterprise number for D-Link systems. So we can know that this device is a D-Link device. Once we know this data, we can go back to Pandora console and register this private enterprise number in our environment. To do this, we go to the following section here in configuration, templates, private enterprise numbers. And by default, when we start in the ISO, we will already have some manufacturers registered with their private enterprise numbers. If we access for example, Cisco, here, we see that for the registration operation, we only need to include in this space the number that we see in that part of the SNMP walk that we make. Only the number in the 7th position. Then we complete this field, the manufacturer, And also, if we want, we can write a description or some information that will be useful in any moment, but only some text. With these steps, we will have added a new private enterprise number. We don't have to do anymore. Subsequently, the module templates will indicate one or more pens, so that when a discovery task is performed from discovery, Pandora will be able to obtain the manufacturer of the device and add an appropriate monitoring. We will see this later, and when we perform a discovery task. Before this, we will go to see the wizards and remote components. We can make that in configuration, templates, remote components. Okay, in this view, we find different options to create remote components. As we see in the drop-down list, there are network components, plugin, wizard, or WMI components. What we will do in this case is to filter by manufacturer, for example, by Cisco. And we can see those already existing in our extensive list. And the following icons indicates us what type they are. In this case, network or wizard. If we open this first one, we can see in the name that it is a component that will obtain data from CPU usage. As you can see, the configuration and the fields are very similar to the ones that we find in the module creation from an agent. The steps that we will follow will be give a name, choose the kind of data between these options, depending on the expected results in the check, assign them to the different organizational groups and at component and module level, we can change the interval also, and indicate some warning and critical thresholds to define later possible alerts. In this case, we have no thresholds defined. In this part, we can indicate a description of what the module should do, or any information that we can use. We can type in this box. Also, here we have to type the OID of this option of CPU usage to get the value later with the module. No more information is necessary, but also we can type SNMP version and all the information related with that. The community, and also authentication if we have version 3 in our devices. by default we don't need to use that, only to set the enterprise SNMP string. With this data and configuration, we will already have created a remote network component to obtain the CPU usage data for a Catalyst device, as we see in the name. Now we're going to take a look for some examples for Wizard modules component. For example, this and this. First, we will see one with which we can also get the CPU usage of our Cisco devices. The difference with the network component we saw before is that in this case we will indicate a partial OID in this field. Also, we set the name of the module, and we can add another extra info by adding a macro. The macro reference this field that we see here, name OID, that we can find in the IANA web, or if the manufacturer give us the information about our device that we can use to complete this information. Here what we have done is to indicate the branch that refers to the index of the OID value. This way it will assign to the CPU one data the index name for that same CPU inside the module name. So for example, if we check this branch and we have the value 8.1, then the name ID will take the index name 2.1 and add it in the macro that we set in module name. Besides the fields we have already filled in, we will find the module protocol where we can choose between SNMP and WMI depending on the device we are going to scan later. In the manufacturer ID we can check or we can see a drop-down list of all the manufacturers that are registered in the private enterprise number sections and that we have previously seen. We can also choose the type of data here by set numeric, incremental, boolean, or alphanumeric, and there we can indicate how the data will be presented. in percentage, a byte, or whatever. As in the remote network components, we can indicate some thresholds for warning and critical, and a description to show in the same field when the modules are generated. In this case, we have set some values for that option on the threshold. Same as in the other option of network component, with these steps we have configured a wizard type remote component with dynamic type scanning. Also, we can see that have two types of scan, fixed or dynamic, that have a simple difference. With dynamic scan type, we are going to scan all the branch we set in value OID. And with the option fixed, we have to set the exactly OID value. For example, what we said before, 8.1, for example, is the only difference. This one take one result only, and this will return us one or more results. Having seen this example, we're going to move on the next one. This one. This will be another remote wizard component, but in this case the execution will be of the plugin type. We can see here. Network was the example before, and we are seeing now a plugin execution type. The modules generated by the component will get their data from the execution of commands, plugins, or custom scripts. In the case of the network type, the module generated by the component will obtain their data with Pandora's own mechanism or SNMP or WMI modules. That is the network, WMI or satellite service. In this example, we can see that we have in the field server plugin here a drop-down list that allows us to choose a plugin that we will have loaded previously, and it will be in charge of doing a certain action. In this one, we will see right now, we read the description here, that we get the result of an arithmetic operation using several OIDs values. To do this, we will work with the OIDs that we have indicated in these fields here and here, and as in the previous example, will be dynamic. Below we see the operation that it carries out to obtain the final result in the module that will be created, and some fields that are completed with specific macros for the SNMP Wizard components that can be used in the execution fields. The other information that we see here is the same as the example before, so we don't have to repeat another more time. With these three examples, we can get an idea of the possibilities of the remote components and how to configure them to use them in our agents or in the module templates to later add them in the discovery task in the discovery tool. So now we are going to see the possibilities that we have by using the wizards in our agents. The first example, we take an agent with operative system Windows. If we move to the management view, we find three types of wizards: SNMP Wizard, SNMP Interface Wizard, and WMI Wizard. In this case, we use that one because our agent is a Windows agent. Okay, in this screen we find some fields to complete or to set information. For example, the target IP, which is the same in this case that we see here. Namespace is not necessary. The username, the password. It's important that the username, the value we set in this field has permissions to check WMI queries, and then we set the pass, and we push here. Okay, we have an error. Okay, then here we can see some information that we obtained with the Explorer. And we can see information about memory processes, CPU usage, power supplies, services, or disks, for example, in this case. If we deploy any of the fields, here, for example, we will see, or we will find data like the module name, descriptions, some fields for set warning and critical thresholds, and the value that this module have in this moment. We are going to see now the other two options, and we explain the fields better because it's the same or near the same. So we explain with SNMP interface and SNMP Wizard. In this case, we choose a device that have SNMP configured, and also we go to manage, and we are going to start by using SNMP Interface Wizard. In this case of a SNMP device, we see two options. The configuration of this screen is the same for two options. So we have to set the target IP in case we will use to check another device that is not this one. If we check the agent in VR, we can check this box, use agent IP, set the SNMP community, and choose the version. Also, if it's version 3, we have to indicate these fields, this configuration. And we make an SNMP walk. Also mention it that the port is only necessary to set if it's different from 161, which is the port for default. If we use another port, we have to set this value. The first thing we will find, we have this data that we'll see is a block in which general aspect of the interfaces will be indicated, such as it module to check the state of the interface and the incoming in and out traffic of the interfaces. So we can check all, some, or neither. We can deactivate, and these modules will not be created. For the interfaces themselves, we can perform the same operations. First, choose if we want to work on all or not, or we can choose 1, 2, or we want or all we want. For example, we want to take information only about this one. We activate it and we select the modules that we want to create. For example, for these interfaces, is Open Status module and the traffic in and out. We created these modules and we see in a moment the results, but we are going to see after to see the view of the agent the other option, the SNMP Wizard. With the SNMP Wizard, it is possible to create modules of several SNMP data types, such as process, free disk, temperature sensors, power supplies, and other data. We have to do the same as after, and the SNMP work, and we have here the results. Here, for example, we can see in this drop-down information about the uptime. So we have here the value, and we can create a module with this information. Also, the rest have information about CPU busy percentage, fans, temperature, or power supply. Here we can see a difference. We can see some information drop-downs that have this hint, and this one doesn't have. This happens when we don't have in this part of templates of remote components this token enable. If we disable that, the information in the agent will not be applied by default. If we want to add this information, we have to do it manual. So if we enable this, when we make an SNMP walk, the options will have this hint, and we can see that the module is activated by default. So the same operation that we make after, we selected the modules that we want to create, and click here in create modules. We see this screen to confirm if we want to create all the modules and if they are correct. If we have some fail, in case we have the same name for 2 or 3 modules, we can see here a warning that indicate that the module will not be created, and we can see it easily. In this case, all are correct, so we press OK. And if we go to the view of the agent, we can see that we have some modules. The ones that we create after of SNMP interfaces, the opera status, in and out traffic, and the new ones, the uptime, fan state, or CPU usage. So in that way we can easily add some info about an SNMP or WMI devices. In this case, the device that we have with Windows operating system have these modules created by the same way. So we see the option of create a private enterprise number and register, how to create remote components of Wizard network plugin type. We see how to use the wizards in agents, and then we are going to see how to use discovery tool to monitor remote agents through Autodiscovery on a network. So we have to go to Discovery, Host and Devices, and Network Scan. Okay. After that, we are going to see another option that we will use in Autodiscovery network scans, that are the templates, the module templates. Here in configuration template, module templates, here. Here we can find some templates already created. For example, we have that Cisco's one. Okay, and we find that it has already found the pen here, the private enterprise number for Cisco is the number 9. That has been previously registered or that already exist in the list, and as then we can find some components to obtain, for example, use CPU use or push BUSY 1 minute, 5 minutes, use RAM use, or some info about bandwidth. If you want to add some more components, just click on the next option, and here will appear all the components that exist in our environment and that we can filter indicating the manufacturer. For example, Cisco, we can see some components, or we can use filter by group. Also we can see more options. If we want to add, we can select one or more and click on OK, and they will appear here. We can see that we add to the model template more components to check in the future. If we go back to the discovery, to the NetScan, we find a first screen where we will have to fill in data such as the name of the task, here we recommended it to use a unique name for each task that we're going to make to do. Also, we should set the discovery server in case we have more than one. We can set the interval by using manual or define it. If we use manual, we have to execute in manually when we want. And if we use defined, we can set when the server will execute this task. We can set minutes, hours, days, or other option that we have here, and change the value here in 2 minutes, 10, or that we want. We are going to set manual. Here we have to set a group. We have to select one of that we have here, and here we have two options. We have the option to load a CSV with the agents to monitor by enable this option, and if we do that, we have to applicate or to upload a file with this format. We have to set the IP of devices, one per line, and we have to set the IP and the mask with the format that we see in the info. If we prefer to use network, we can do that by adding information that how we see as we see in the hint. We can choose a network and set the mask. We can set one or more separated by commas, but in our case we are going to use only one network, and then we can go to next step. In this screen, we find more specific aspects for monitoring. First of all, we can do filtering by ports, and in this case the target will only be scanned if at least one of the ports we indicate in this field is open. The next token, when it's enabled, we will use the private enterprise number that we configure after. And here we can choose between the different versions or module templates that we have in this place that we saw minutes ago. For example, I'm going to use basic monitoring that will add 2 modules to all the devices, the agents that we find, the host alive and the latency for those agents. To use this token, also we need to to use SNMP, as we saw in hint, that requires SNMP. So we have to enable this option and also select the version and complete in this box the name of our community or communities. We can set one or more. For example, this one and this one, but I am only going to use the first one. This option, review results, will allow us to check at the end of the task the state of the scanned network. That is to see which devices have been found and information options through modules that we can add. The rest of fields that we find in this view will allow us to apply auto configuration rules, for example, if we enable or not, and activate monitoring through WMI, operating system detection, name resolution, parent detection, parent recursion, well, where we see. So we only are going to use that options, and then we finish our task configuration. To execute, we can press this option to force, and it will make to start the task and take a few minutes, seconds, depends of how many devices has our network, our net. So we are going to use this one. Is the same network, and we have the results to view what we get with that scan. So if we press in, or we'll check in these review results, we will see a summary with the all devices that has that network. So you can see 60 devices are alive, 194 are not alive, and 6 of that alive respond SNMP protocol with the community configured before. In this part we see the IPs of the different devices that we find, and we can see two different types of color. The first one that we see that is less intensive color than this one indicates that this agent also exists, and the modules that we want to add also exist. So there are no operations to do in this agent. So we can see in this way. But if we expand, extend the option, we see we can add the host latency module. This one indicates that host alive, the agent doesn't exist first of all, and then it doesn't have host alive module, and also doesn't have host latency module, so we can check completely. In this case, we see devices that only have the option to add a basic monitoring, but we can see another one, for example this, that have more modules to add by the SNMP protocol. So we can add this kind of modules, for example opera status or out octets for this option, this interface. So we can select one, two, or all we want to add to the agent. For example, we are going to set only these 4 devices to add, and if we check OK, we have a summary that tell us that these modules and these agents are created correctly, and we have no problems, no one fails, and all this information is added. Well, and this is all for this option of network scan. It's easy to use and easy to add new agents and new modules for these agents. The last thing we're going to see in this workshop is the SNMP Browser tool. We can find it in monitoring, SNMP Browser. Here we can check an OID branch of any device. We have only to set the IP of the device. For example, this one, its community, the version of SNMP, and the OID or branch we are going to scan to view the information that we'll receive. So if we have these fields complete, we check in browser, and after seconds, and before we wait, we can see this information. Here we can see all the info that we can take of this branch. Grouped by SNMP MIB, if interface is MIB, different options. So if we extend it, each branch, we can see more information or specific information, for example about interfaces opera status, and we can consult the data in it and give us the possibility. We can see here more information about this specifically, and we can make some task, or we can find some options like create a network component, a model that will be added to this agent or the one we choose, and added this model to a policy. So for example, if we select this one, we should find the agent that we want. For example, this one, and we create the model in this agent. We can see the info about the model, how it will be created, and if we are okay with all of this, we can choose to create, and the model will be added in the agent. The same option we can do to add to a policy, or to create a component, a network component. With this, we will have seen some possibilities that Pandora has when monitoring devices through SNMP and WMI protocols with the wizards and discovery tool. So we have checked the options that we have defined to this workshop, and if you have some questions or something to tell to us or something, you can write us, and we will be happy to help you. By this, we have seen all that we want, that is necessary to use Autodiscovery and the options to work with that. So if you have some question, thank you, and we will see you in the next workshop. Also remember that the next workshop will be on November 19th, and we will talk about the reports that can be created in Pandora. We make a special mention to the SLA and availability reports, and how to see and download these reports. You can see in the description of this video the link to next and to sign up if you want to take a part of the next workshop. I hope you like it, and see you soon. Thank you very much.